Okay, if I can have everyone's attention, please. Okay, the reason for the meeting tonight is really as to what we're going to be doing moving forward. So construction questions and whatnot, or questions from the press or anything, this is not what this is about. I'm going to tell you why and what the status of the building is across the street. But I also want to make sure that everybody is aware of what's going to be happening on Monday when we return the students back to school, which is what we're here today. The whole administrative team is here to give you some ideas as to what's going to happen moving forward. All right? Okay, second of all, we will be running another parent meeting one day next week. We're not sure what day yet, but it will be a later meeting. And this meeting is being live streamed and being recorded so that it will be available on the website also. Okay, because I'm sure you have a lot of questions as to how things are going to move forward. Okay, what you're seeing up there update on the construction issues. This screw, as you see here, this is the problem that we have currently in the building. Mr. Ben?
So yesterday afternoon, a student came to the main office to report that a screw fell from the ceiling in the commons. And if you've been in the high school, you know the common ceiling is obviously quite high. It goes directly from the roof to there. There's nothing below it. So it was an immediate concern to us. Mr. Lesky was the first one that had reported to him. He came down. Mr. Hickman and I decided to look further into this to figure out if we could see it on camera, figure out what was going on. We also met with our grounds director, Mr. Mueller, to also look at the screw to figure out exactly how this could have happened and go from there. We're obviously very concerned. And one of the things to realize, if you ever look up in the commons, you'll realize that there are a number of screws that come down from the roof, piercing the ceiling. And it's not just in that area, it's in any of the areas that have the acoustical decking, which is not just the commons, that also is our gymnasium, and those are some of our D-wing classrooms as well that have the acoustical decking. So once this happened, we were immediately concerned that what if this is not the only screw that is loose? And how can we possibly have students back in those locations knowing there might be additional screws, which is when we talked to Dr. Stevenson and had the whole admin team together to discuss our options to ensure the safety of our students.
Okay, so when I was alerted to the situation, went over to the high school and had our consultants there, and with the number of screws that are coming through the roof, see, there's no ceiling tile in those rooms. So if the screws were falling down onto a ceiling tile deck, the students would be protected from those screws that are falling. But we had no idea, and we have no way of knowing as to whether or not any of those are, are going to come down again. And so therefore, that entire building and that whole area, that building is not safe right now. And we're not going to let people back in it until it is, and it's going to take some time. And that's why we're here tonight. Okay? Why don't everybody introduce everybody that's here tonight. Mr. Sean Bannett's our principal. I'm Dr. Stevenson, the acting superintendent right now. Mr. Shore, our junior high school principal. Mr. Molesky, assistant principal from the high school. Dr. Clark, assistant principal at the junior high. Mr. Denning, assistant principal at the junior high, and various people. Mr. Hickman, assistant principal at the high school. Mrs. Kenny, director of student services. Ms. Frasta, English supervisor, social studies supervisor. Mr. Morgan, our supervisor of mathematics and science. So we have all the administrative people here and the instructional people to explain what's going to happen next week. Okay?
So our current plan, because number one, our major concern is trying to make sure we're limiting the disruption to our students' education. We know that there's a safety issue, but we need to figure out how to continue education. We've lost too much school time already, and we can't continue to have our students lose that time as we move forward in the school year. So immediately, as we had our staff come in today, and we told them this as well, and we're telling this to you, we are going to have all students run out of the junior high school. We're no longer going to be using the high school for an indefinite period of time.
Okay, so what does that mean? Well, good evening, everyone, and again, I appreciate you coming out, taking the time from your busy schedule so we can kind of go over with you what the continuance of education plans look like. So one of the things, the first thing that's going to happen is that the split schedule, because there are some logistical things that still need to be worked out. For example, transportation issues that we still I don't think have gotten with transportation. There's still some approvals that we have to get from the county and I believe the state levels with this plan, but nonetheless, we need to have a plan in place. So now is that the first 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, would be an A-B rotation. And what that simply means is that the junior high school staff and students would report normal day, normal time, we would run in a regular schedule. The high school staff would also report, but the students in the high school will not. So the students at the high school will be off, but the staff will report. They'll finish on getting all of their essential items from the high school, setting up. We've taken the time to buddy them up with a teacher, well, not so much a teacher, but a classroom in the high school, in the junior high school, and they will finish up those continuation of education plans. Now, vice versa, on Tuesday, kids would stay home. The high school students would report for a normal day. They would run a normal day, and the junior high school staff would do the exact same thing that the high school staff would do. Basically, since they're not being displaced, actually helping the high school staff move in, accommodate in their rooms, and working on the continuation of the continuation of education plans.
Those plans that Mr. Shore is talking about is part of what we also work with our staff during in-service day on Monday. We've had all of our staff members set up a Google Classroom. That way they can make sure they can communicate with the students even if they are not here. Now, that is not a live time communication, but it enables the teachers to post assignments, discussion boards, and so on. That way the students, even when they're not here, can still get some instruction, and we can hope to, again, as I said, make up for the lost time and continue moving education forward, which is our primary goal.
So after that A-day, B-day rotation from the junior high school and high school, the plan is right now is to start the split schedule, the split session, however you want to phrase it, that would start on Wednesday. Okay, so as we discussed before, if you take a look up here, this is the junior high school schedule, so that would be, like I said, a normal day. The ninth graders would be in approximately 7:15, they would run through their schedule, be done up here at 11. Eighth graders would unload at 8:05, run a regular day. To the right would be what the high school staff would be working at, or would be working on.
So similarly, on the Tuesday here, you'll see what the junior high school staff will be working at, and the high school students will be working an 8-period schedule, which is the schedule we've already used from time to time in the high school. We will have a shorter lunch period in here to, again, push back more minutes into the instructional periods, and especially because we do not have as many spaces, since the whole high school traditionally eats at one point in time, but we don't have the comments here and things like that. So we wanted to obviously maximize our educational time while we're here. So as I said, our number one goal throughout this entire process, and definitely when we were talking today and most of last night, is to make sure that we're doing what we can to ensure the education of our students and guarantee their safety. That really is what brought us to this point in time where we are.
Yeah, and I just want to piggyback on what Mr. Bannon said. I think it's important that at this point, we understand the frustration. Trust me when I tell you this, that I don't think that there's anyone that's sitting in this room that thought in mid-October that we would be going through this. Yes, we understand that there's probably some growing pains and things that go along with the construction process, but we're just as disheartened too, because of the situation we're in. It's taking away from all of the great things and the positive things that your kids do, that our staff does, that the sports teams do. So trust me when I tell you this, and I've had a lot of great conversations, at least with some of the junior high school parents over the past, 2 or 3 days, 4 or 5 days since we've been going through this. And I hope, I guess I will speak for Mr. Bannon, but, the utmost importance is the safety to the students and to the staff, and to make sure that we get some sort of normalcy back in our district and continue with the education process, because that is what's important. So, it kind of goes along, with our goal, Mr. Bannon.
So as we said, we're still working on finalizing all details of the split session. As Mr. Short indicated, one of the biggest impediments to us having a full plan for you is to make sure we can guarantee with our transportation company what times we can have the buses available, since we do a shared busing arrangement with our sending districts as well. So just so you have an idea as to what split session really would entail, first thing is the high school would come in first. We would run 4 one-hour book classes. After the high school students leave, the junior high school students would come in, and I guess tentatively right now, the buses that the junior high school students would come in on, the high school students would leave, and that's part of the, like I was saying, the conversations we're having with the transportation company as well.
And just to go along with that, because we are basically running 2 half-day schedules, there are no formal lunch periods that will take place. The high schoolers are used to their hour unit lunch. There will not be that hour unit lunch, but we do feel that it is important that we do feed the kids. So we have stations that are going to be set out through the junior high school for a grab-and-go type breakfast. And consequently, when the junior high school come in, the exact same thing won't be breakfast, but they will be afforded some sort of grab-and-go lunch, because if I'm not mistaken, look at the schedule, I believe there's a 20-minute like flex time before they arrive and before they start that first period. And certainly, we're going to have to adjust. We're going to have to be flexible. We talked with our staff this morning, and a lot of the things and a lot of the rigidity and a lot of the routines that we're used to. And trust me, I'm a routine person. I like kind of things a certain way. So I'm going through those growing pains too. So the kids taking a lunch and going back to the classroom and eating it. Like those things are going to happen. So we're going to try to find some normalcy in the day and keep those things that are regular. Feeding the kids, get them to class, making sure they have the time in class. So those things are going to happen, but there is no, I think it's important for you guys to know that there is no actual lunch periods. The high school has their hour unit lunch. We do 4, 6, 8, and 10. Those are going to have to go by the wayside until we get back to a regular junior high school. But we will have stations throughout, and they will be allowed to eat in the, if we got to use the gymnasium, if we have to use the cafeteria, if we have to use the classroom. So they will be afforded something at least.
The one thing that we don't be remiss in skipping over too is that the 9th graders will now be on the same exact schedule as the 7th and 8th graders. Right now the 9th graders on the same time schedule with the high school, but due to the busing situation, they're going to have to obviously go on the same schedule as the 7th and 8th graders. This also has to be actually looked at trying to juggle our entire staff scheduling around as well. I think the number was around 36 roughly, that also teach 7th and 8th grade classes. So it was something that we really just unfortunately could not possibly rearrange those schedules that negatively impacting that many students. So the 9th graders are going to have to be aligned with the 7th and 8th grade schedule as well. Still working on those times, and that was why Dr. Stevenson said to you as well that we're hoping to have another meeting next week so we can give you the information as soon as we have it as well. And make sure you have a clear understanding as to what the split sessions will be in terms of the exact time frames.
And it's a weird thing, because this is my 21st year here. So you would think maybe in 20, 21 years of education that you might have to go through something like this. I myself, and I don't want to speak for the rest of the administrative team, but in a situation where I have had to have a discussion about split sessions. So this has been a great learning experience. I don't know if great is the exact term I want to use, but it's been a learning experience for me as well, because I have never had to endure this since I've been here. It's always been I'm in the same schedule. I'm going through and learning a great deal as we go too. So, I mean, that's my personal experience, but from other conversations, I don't think any of us have gone through a split session before.
So we do have additional topics we've been looking into as well. As we mentioned, the transportation is one of the big focal points in trying to figure out the new bus times, trying to get new bus passes. As I said, since the 9th graders are at the same time as the 7th and 8th graders, they'll be riding on the junior high school bus times. And one of the things we obviously have to continue to do is allow our seniors to park, but they will have to park in the high school parking lots. We've also been talking to the Little League Police Department to make sure we can have the students properly and safely cross over from the high school parking into the junior high school parking lot as well. As I mentioned, we've been working on the continuing education plans through Google Classroom, and we made sure that all the high school classes are assigned to junior high school rooms, which will be in on-course. We're working on updating that as well, so all your students will know right away from looking on there where they're going to report to when they come here on Tuesday in terms of the high school students.
Okay, so as I had mentioned before, and this is kind of the point that I was making as we're going through and I'm learning about this process, I don't know if I myself am going to have all the answers, but one of the things which I've been communicating back to the junior high school parents is that certainly if I don't know the answer right now as it pertains to the situation we've been dealt, as that unfolds, I will make sure that the junior high administrative staff, and I'm sure that the same for Mr. Bannon, that once we have that in some way, shape, or form, whether it's independent global connects or personal phone calls back, we will make sure that that information gets communicated back to you. Okay, so everyone is in the loop, and hopefully that we're all on the same page, and certainly we can move forward in that. But this was some of the things, areas of development that we may not have the answer to. We've been in intense, when I say intense conversations, we've been in the mornings and trying to come up with this, but we may not. Again, this is something that are questions that we have that we may not have a complete plan on yet, which we want to continue to do today and Tuesday when we're on the A Day, B Day, because we'll all be together in the same building. And some of those bullet points were the impact on sports and certainly the extracurricular activities. A great number of our students are involved. If they're not involved athletically, they're involved in the drama and chorus, which is has a huge following, and it's a great program here at the junior high school, along with all of our other clubs and activity as well. Late buses, certainly I had mentioned earlier in the presentation that we've been in constant contact with Durham buses, and they've been super. So again, those are some things that we have to work out because of our shared buses with all of our sending elementary schools. The supervision of students with special needs before and after designated sessions. Certainly don't want the day to end with any of our students and have them unsupervised. So we need to have, there might be a small overlap time when the junior high is coming in and the high school is going out. But not all the students are going to take the bus. So we have to come up and make sure that we have a designated area and those children are supervised and safe until their appropriate ride comes. Mr. Bannon, if you want to hit me.
One of the other areas of concern we certainly have is the Rainbow Express program. As of right now, we do not have our finalized details. As Mr. Shore is saying, the only thing we're going to have to do is not have our Rainbow Express students come for all of next week and make sure we can put a proper plan in place. I know it's an inconvenience for those families that do send their students, but we want to make sure we can put a plan that's going to properly meet the needs for that program.
We're aware, parents of Rainbow Express possibly won't have that. There will be a parent meeting that will be hosted by Mrs. McCann, myself, and high school administration to keep those parents informed. So if you have toddlers attending Rainbow Express, there will be no classes next week.
See,
And there will be
no one ever wants to listen to me.
Use it.
No Rainbow Express next week, and there will be a parent meeting for parents of students, the toddlers, to keep them in the loop. Look for an announcement forthcoming about that. That will be either on Monday or Tuesday of next week.
He did his internship with me too, but you think he would learn something, but.
And similarly, the making up the missed days, that's something that the board still has to determine as well. I know that we talked about that at the board meeting, and again, that's still something that we're trying to figure out as well too.
Okay, we started off ahead, hey.
So certainly, there's certainly some changes that are going to impact the children, as we mentioned as well. The biggest thing is making sure you do check the parent portals. Through the portal, there are more information coming from that. As I mentioned, all of the new classroom locations for the students in the high school, they will be on course. Also on Tuesday, when the students arrive, we are going to have staff throughout the building to assist the students in finding the locations, because I believe it's since the seniors left, all the new building rooms are a new number, correct?
Yeah, probably a large, well, I don't say a large number, yeah, probably the juniors and seniors. We have renumbered the building here because we were kind of scattered. So it's very simple, and it's something that you can tell them, basically the three hallways that run long ways are A, B, and C. The ones that run from front to back are D and E, but there's really not too many classes minus the media center. All the instructional classes for the most part happen in those A, B, and C. And it's very simple. If it's a, A110, if it's a 100 number, it's downstairs. If it's a 200 number, it's upstairs. And even, I believe the even numbers are on the left and the odd numbers are on the right. So we kind of simplified a little bit. But that's kind of a general gist.
Regardless of that, we still will have staff available to make sure it's come on. As I mentioned too, with Google Classrooms will still work in place for the continuing education plan, so we want to make sure the students know that they can keep it accessible in there too.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Bannon, but the Google Classroom links are actually linked to the teacher's webpage on their on-course page?
That is correct. For any of the classes that are not already signed up, as I know a number of the teachers have already worked with their students to make sure they're already signed into the Google Class page. If they are not yet, you go through every teacher's on-course website. You will find the individual class code that they can enter to make sure they're part of it immediately. Please make sure you do talk to your students, let them know that there could potentially be some different start times with the split. Again, we don't have those definitive times yet. We will communicate with them as soon as we do have them. Additional supports. We know it's going to be somewhat difficult for the students that are going to transition from the high school back to the junior high. We do have the SBYS, guidance, child study team, and so on. They're available to meet with the students that they're having a difficult time during this whole process. We know it is definitely difficult It's been a very interesting start of the school year. Certainly not the way that any of us planned for it, but we want to make sure we have the services available to help the students moving forward as well.
And, and if you don't mind, Mr. Bannon, I'll kind of speak for you again here. Again, like I said, I've had a tremendous amount of conversations since we've been back. And I have told the parents, please feel free to contact any one of us, myself, Dr. Clark, Mr. Molesky, Mr. Denning, and please, if you're in open door policy, I'd rather kind of sit down and have an honest conversation. If anyone has ever read any of my letters or memos, I'm not the biggest English person, so I am not an expert in grammar. I can talk, but I cannot write all that well. So please, like I said, the main goal for us is to now we have to get past that hurdle. We have hit some very, very tumultuous times here. Like I said, this is my 21st year, and I don't think I have seen, at least in this way as it pertains to the school. I mean, trust me, we've had our things and our natural disasters and things like this, but this is kind of a new kind of area for us. So I want to at least make sure that the people that I'm directly associated with the junior high school, and I'm sure that Mr. Bannon, with the high school, we want you to trust us and to be safe with us and trust that the information that we're giving you is correct. I will tell you right now that I'm not going to have every question, every answer to the question you're going to ask probably about this. But certainly, as we trudge through over the next 2 days, hopefully we have those answers and we can communicate that out. But please, 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 if you have any questions, concerns, please just reach out and contact one of us, and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions. And again, from the bottom of the administrative team's heart.
Right now?
I'm sorry?
Like right now?
Right now.
Questions?
Hold on one second. I'll finish up. Yes, we can have some questions in a second. But we just wanted to thank you for your patience, and hopefully we can move forward, from the start of the school year. So.
As Mr. Shaw was saying, certainly, we do not have the answers to every question, but we're certainly working to get them. We're certainly trying to put number one, first and foremost, to make sure the students can continue their education, we can guarantee their safety moving forward, and make sure that all of our students who are on path to graduate are able to do so, that we can make sure that the students who need credits get them, the students that are going to be here can continue to learn, we can hopefully start to move past the issues we've already had this year, and really make sure the students can just move and soar. If you stayed to the end of the board meeting the other night, you would have seen that our students in this district have really increased in their PARCC scores. We are achieving higher academic gains than ever before, and we do not want to do anything that's going to jeopardize that and set that back. We are working very hard as an administration team to make sure we continue on the positive motion we are going, and we really need your help in helping with this as well. Again, no one of us expected to be here, but this is the position we are now in, and we're going to do everything we can to ensure your students are able to learn in a safe environment.
Questions, I'm going to come around and we're going to try to field answers to those. So just be patient, I'm going to make my way across.
All right. High schoolers, extra help. When I was back to school night, other teachers said either C day, lunch period, the students could come in for extra help, or they could stay after school. So if high schoolers need extra help, how are they going to obtain that if it's a split session and there's not a lunch period and there's not after school? One-on-one with the teacher or in small groups is what they had said.
That's still one of the things actually we're talking about today. A lot of that depends on the busing schedule. To see, we talked about talking to the staff about having them come in early, stay later, depending. So we definitely know that's an issue. We want to make sure our teachers are there to help the students. We love the system we had already in place, obviously, with the mentoring and everything else. So we're trying to figure out how we can make that work. It's going to be a little bit difficult, obviously, if we have to keep some of the high school students after with the junior high schools in session. We recognize that, and we're trying to figure out solutions out as well.
And my other question is, belongings that were left in the high school, how are they going to get back to their belongings?
Talking about the ones that are lockers and so on, we definitely recognize that as well. We were pulling on some information in terms of what happened a few years back when there was the fire, and I guess when the fire in the science wing, or right below the science wing rather, there was a system in place where I guess all the lockers were emptied, bagged and tagged and brought over. That's something probably very similar we'll end up doing ultimately. We certainly realize that a lot of the students have things in there we want to get, but at the same point in time, I don't really feel comfortable telling students to go back in into a building that we're having these issues with right now. So it'll probably be something where either we will or a company will or something, we will get everything out of those lockers.
What about the VOTEC kids?
Though will still continue on as per normal. I know right now we've actually, even in the days that we've lost the VO students, they still continue to go to VO. They still get dropped off at the high school. That'll still continue. Their busing will not be impacted. The students that you're talking about, the students who have an AM in terms of their PM classes, if we go to the split schedule, that's something we're still trying to work on in terms of figuring out how to make sure we can continue their education. But I guarantee we'll do everything in place that they will not be short credits. They will be able to graduate on time.
So will they have,
I'll come back to you. Hold on one second. I'll come back to you so everyone can hear.
part of that, my daughter,
I just want to make sure everyone can hear the question.
will they have a PM class?
They're not going to have. They've got AM Bo.
If it's an AM vote student, will they have a PM class?
That's what I'm saying. Right now, because of the schedule, obviously,
My daughter still goes to vote, but she comes back and goes home. Where's her education? And how long is it gonna keep going?
I understand, sir. That's what I'm telling you. We do not have a definitive answer on that yet. We are working on trying to figure out how we can get the students' education.
Smaller kids later, what's that do to the seniors that don't get that, and the students that don't get that?
I'm sorry, sir. I can't hear this.
Turn it off.
We're having some technical difficulties. Do you have a backup mic, Mr. Short?
Yep, hold on.
I just have two questions. Will lockers be supplied for the high school kids?
No.
Okay, and the second is, what about football practice on Monday and Tuesday? If the high school's not coming to school on Monday,
Oh, they'll still have their football practice. Sports and after-school activities will still continue.
okay.
We're actually, I'm looking at Dr. Stevenson's message last night. All sports and activities that use locker rooms will be running out of the junior high locker rooms.
Are we still gonna have homecoming?
Oh, yes, that'll still come. We actually had that conversation today, and I believe the advisors also talked to Mr. Short about having the homecoming dance still continue, but it would be in this building, in the gym.
I do another question.
Do we know how long the duration of this is gonna take?
As of right now, it's an indefinite period while the roofing continues.
So we're talking like your sports, like basketball, like how do we do all of these sports?
The-
High school and college.
In terms of your, just so everyone else can hear his question, he's asking about the sports that come in the following season, in the winter season, how we continue with them. That's something we're going to address as we get closer to the season. It's definitely one of those things that, as we noticed from the board, we're working on those details to figure out how we can have the impact, especially as you mentioned, with the ninth graders working on the same schedule with the seventh and eighth graders, trying to figure out a way to make sure that those ninth graders, if they're playing those higher level sports as well, and intramural sports. That's one of the things we're discussing as well.
I have another question. I have another question over here. So it's split up into 4-hour instructional blocks. In those 4-hour instructional blocks, legally they have to have gym and whatnot. So it's really not 4 hours of instructional time, correct?
This is still what they'll still have gym. It'll be on a rotation. So the high school schedule, just so you know, will actually work on an AB rotational schedule once we go to splits. So on one day you would have 1, 2, 5, 6, and the following day would be 3, 4, 7, 8. So you still have all 8 of the classes the students currently have would work. So it actually straight the schedule we currently have at the high school, which is the 4-day rotational with the drop off, to an AB block period. So the actual periods of instruction actually increase from what they currently are, even though we're having that way. So yes, we realize that as well. They'll still have all the classes they're supposed to.
I have another question over here.
My son is in Mr. Beaton's class in the annex building. When will he come, Monday or Tuesday? Because he's technically ninth grade, but their program is a little different, so what day will he have to come?
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
I have another question over here.
Just a quick question, as far as the way the school's gonna run now, how does it affect the end of the school?
In terms of the last day of school, is that what your question was? That's up to the Board of Education as they finalize the calendar as well. That has not yet been determined.
Question here.
Just curious, how are you going to get the kids back to after-school activities in the morning, like the high schoolers? Or is that something that we have to provide transportation to again? Because it has been a really big inconvenience. Most people do have to work throughout the day, and they don't have the flexibility of leaving work to bring their child back to the high school or junior high school at 2:30 for sports or drama or anything like that. So how is that going to work?
That is one of the many pieces I was mentioning before about the extracurriculars and after-school activities in general that we're trying to work on. We certainly understand that hardship as well. Unfortunately, we don't have the answer. That's one of those things we're trying to get the information from to give back to you.
I have another question up here.
Obviously, this is a great strain on the parents who have to work full-time. Some of us have a little bit of flexibility with our schedules and certain days off, work at home on our own businesses. Excuse me. If we're willing to at our home for parts of the morning, parts of the afternoon, whatever's involved with high school versus junior high, is there something that you can do to change the busing schedule to help pick up at one drop point where if there's a house with 15 kids there? Because let's face it, we all got to work. You ask for how many millions of dollars to pay for this. My husband's out working 2 jobs right now to pay for the property taxes for this. I work all kinds of hours, but I have a couple of days where I can work from my home if needed. You've asked us to make the ultimate sacrifice. Can we have a bus schedule that's changed so that we can have a pickup of 10, 15 kids at one parent's house if needed?
Can I answer that question?
Absolutely, Dr. Martin.
One of the purposes of tonight's meeting was to not just answer questions, but also hear your perspective as parents, because we've been looking at this from an educator's perspective. And so thank you for your suggestion, and that's definitely something that, now that you have brought that up, that we can take into consideration. So thank you.
By participating in drama, we use the auditorium because we need all the space. We have a class with 30 kids. How are we supposed to fit a class of 30 kids into what was an English classroom? How are we supposed to perform the best to our abilities if we are in a classroom that's the size of a normal English class?
Those who said, we know there are multiple hardships that students are going to face in classes, and we do have some flexibility in terms of the spacing that we have in classes like that are here, if the spacing is needed. But even something like you mentioned drama, in terms of, we don't know how long this will be, if this will impact our fall production and things like that. But those are all the considerations that I tell you, we are working behind the scenes to get those answers for you as well.
I have a question over here. Do you want to go back and forth?
That would be great, Mr. Denny. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm speaking on behalf of a few parents of special needs students. I made some phone calls. I emailed. My husband has made some phone calls. We have not received an answer yet. My son is in Mr. Beaton's class in the high school. The abbreviated schedule, though, does not address the legal document of his IEP, and I would like to know if that's being discussed. And also taking into consideration that many of special needs children cannot stay home unsupervised. And we are both full-time employees. I'm a teacher. I can't just say I can't come to work until the school resolves the construction issues. So we are very frustrated. We have passed our child around for care through friends and families for these 6 days, but that is over now. We have no family or child caregivers locally that we can rely upon, and we work full-time. So is there any
response to that one?
Yes.
That is something that we were just in communication with the director of special education, Ellen Ward. She is working and putting something special into place, particularly for some of our some students with special needs. who cannot be home by themselves to make sure that we have a safe location that they can be at as much as possible to keep their regular day. So we don't have the details regarding that right now, but that is something that she is working tirelessly behind the scenes to make sure is in place. Unfortunately, we're probably not looking at something for Monday and Tuesday, but we would like to adjust with everybody else that we can get something into place starting on Wednesday that is going to create some normal for all the students there.
And just to address your question, I know that Mrs. Ward did speak with her staff today, and I don't know if it was necessarily mentioned you did, but yeah, certainly if that was to happen, there would have to take a great number of amendments to the IEP, so it was discussed today. Okay, so those will be rolled out. Okay.
I have one here.
I'm speaking on behalf of the seniors. What if we have half a day and we only have 2 hours? What do we do? How are we gonna go home?
We actually were talking about that today as well, in terms of a slight adjustment to your schedule. So you'd actually have your 2 classes in the morning each day, plus a study hall. You go over some additional time with you to make sure you're getting all you need for your classes too. That was one of the conversations we had to address that for you. She would be there for, I believe it's about 3 of the hours. So it still would be an abbreviated version of her schedule. Correct. Because she right now only has 4 classes in her day anyway. Correct. Yeah.
Question over here.
Yeah, for kids who have specialized courses over at the high school, kids in the D wing, Chem Lab, those types of advanced classes. Are you making provisions over here for them to do all that as well?
Yes, in fact, I'd like to give credit to Mr. Hickman, who today actually used his own van to get a lot of the equipment from some of the specialized classes to bring over and set things up so that way right away on Tuesday they can get rolling.
So everything there will be here?
As much as we possibly can. There's more things we're still working on. The question actually just came up here, for instance, the auto tech classes. We're trying to make some adjustments to see what we have in this building to get those classes still up and running. Again, it will be a modified version, but we do have some materials here as well. And our teachers are really working to try to figure out what they have here material-wise and what they can do to adapt to make sure to meet the students' needs as well.
Thank you. I realize this is all about the safety of the kids and the split sessions. The split sessions are a necessity, but if this is going to go on for a long time, is there going to be anything looking into like trailers or anything like that to kind of get us back to normal?
I don't know what the final outcome was. I know that has been part of a great many of our discussions, but between trailers and split sessions, I don't know what the answer to that is yet. It has come up. But ultimately,
Hello. We don't have all the answers for that situation yet. We're trying to figure that out because we're going to be changing some things, obviously, with the construction process. So for right now, I can't answer that question, but moving forward, as soon as I know, or when Dr. Banks gets back, she knows, we will be sure to pass that information along. In progress.
I have another question over here.
I was just wondering how you were going to work the middle school schedule. We keep talking about block schedules for high school, but what are you going to do with the middle school kids?
Would you like me to answer that question?
Go ahead.
So one of the things that we have done, the high school already has a block set up where they have that 8-period day and it's rotational. We're going to end up splitting the junior high school schedule in 2. Where like period 1 and 12, because the 9th graders are going to be coming in at the same time, 1 and 12 would happen at the same time, period 2 would happen next, period 3, then period 4, 5, or 5, 6, and those would also be a block of 1 hour long, and then the next day we would have the remainder of those classes. So we are going to run a block for the junior high school as well, just to make sure that we maximize the instructional time that we have with the students here.
So they're not losing anything, they're just doing it a little different.
Correct. They're not losing anything. It's just they're not going to run through all 8 of their classes in one day. They're going to have half one day and half the other day.
Yeah, so they're actually going to an hour class as opposed to the 42 minutes. They should be somewhat used to it because we did something similar for our park schedule, so.
I have a question, or wait, I want to make a statement. I'm over here, Mr. Short, over here. You're not that old. How are you? Okay, for all of us that are a little older, we have, along with your mom, we experienced split sessions at Little Ed years and years ago. We functioned, it worked, it was a proven program, we got educated, it all worked out. What we need to do is, number one, ask the board to make sure that in the contractual agreement between this construction company and our district, that they have a certain date that they need to be put up on a noose, may I say, to have this done. Because if they're not, if it's not completed by a certain date, by the state of New Jersey, they should be fined. So we need to put our wildcat claws out and tell them that this is when it needs to be done, so it doesn't affect our education for our children and our community, and get it back to the way it did before. And also put a policy in for any kind of situation that has occurred like this, so that we can go forward from here. So it all works. We just have to work together.
And I'll be sure to let my mom know you said hello.
Curious, are there tentative times for start in the morning and afternoon times for the high school on the schedule and the middle school?
Honestly, right now, so much is in conversation with transportation to figure out what will work with the other sending districts, that we don't have even anything set right now, I'll tell you. It kind of been all over the place to figure out what will really work to make sure we can get the students as quickly as possible, and obviously try to maximize, I mentioned that in-between period of having the junior high school students come, as the high school students leave, that's one of the holdups. So really everything is still too tentative to really say anything.
I have a question over here as well.
Sorry, just still not sure about the block scheduling. If my daughter has English for 47 minutes a day for 5 days, that's 235 minutes. If they're switching to every other day at an hour, you're looking at 120 to 180. How is that possible to say that they're getting the same education?
Like I said, this is an adjustment, and we certainly understand that it's not going to be completely 100% identical, but it's one of those things that this is the hand we're dealt, and this is the best we can come up with to make sure we're continuing the education for our students. And again, that's paramount. We right now have lost a number of days, and we need to make sure we're stopping that, and getting our students here and getting them educated to make sure they get what they need. And that's what we have to do.
And just to piggyback off, sorry about that. Just to piggyback off that too, one of the things that we talked about with the Google Classroom, a lot of our teachers already use it and communicate with the students already. We know 4 hours is not the same as 6.5 or whatever it is, but the teachers will be in contact with them every day, and they can, trust me, the teachers do not want to not cover all the material they normally cover. They will still use it, and they will still get that education to the students. So having Google Classroom, we are a Google district, which means everybody has access to it, which makes it a good platform to use.
Follow-up. I don't have Wi-Fi or a computer in my house.
And we have already had discussions about that. We can't tell you exactly how that's going to work right now, but we are well aware that not every single student in the district is going to have access to internet. So we will definitely work with you. Actually, most of the students are already familiar with Google Classroom and can download the app on their phone. It is very easy to use. If you ask your child, they will probably already know or have the app on their phone.
Okay, thank you.
Question over here.
For the guidance counselors that are in the high school, where are they going to be located so we can get in touch with them for our seniors?
So one of the things.
I don't know.
One of the things that they did today when they came in is.
No, you need it. One of the things that they did today is that when the staff came in, we had our staff report today at 10:30, and we kind of unrolled the same plan to them as well. So after we had our meeting with them, so basically we're sharing space with them. So our guidance counselor's offices will be the high school guidance counselor's office. So when Mr. Bannon comes over, he's going to have access to the main office. He's going to have his crew. And then at whatever time, it's going to be, kind of a switch. And then, my staff will come in and do that. So all of the teachers and the admin staff went through and, we had either pairing up with offices or, things that, open spaces that we've had have made offices. So the guidance counselors will be sharing a space. They'll have that office so they can have those conversations, those confidential conversations with the students if they need to. Yes. Yep.
And we'll probably have to update like extensions to show you which counselor they're paired with, so you can see that probably on the website. But right now, teachers are already paired, so if you open up your on-course, you will see what classroom coincides with the high school schedule.
There was one question that came in from the back too, in terms of students' lockers again. Certainly, if we didn't have all the materials that are in their lockers right now with the students on Tuesday, the high school staff fully understands that and is told already to be flexible. Because obviously we can't have the students go back in that building right now, so that the teachers certainly understand that there could be things the students do need for classes. And that's why I say we're trying to work right now to figure out how we can get into those lockers to get everything we need for the students as quickly as possible. For instance, some students even mentioned that they have instruments that they left behind in the high school as well. So the same thing, we're working with them and their teachers to get those instruments that they might need for their classes and for performances too.
I have a question here real quick.
I know this question was just asked about the students with IEPs and special needs. If you could just elaborate a little more. I know Mr. Shore, you said that IEPs were looking at being amended, but what exactly,
So basically, when you make an amendment, that means that let's say if a student's IEP says that they're going to have X amount of time or whatever accommodations and things that they have. So certainly because we're going to the split session, when I say amended, anything that would have to be changed or updated in terms of the new schedule. So let's say that if it's a 8-hour school day, now it's going to say a 6.5-hour school day. So anything that pertains to what would be a normal school day, depending on the child and the modifications, accommodations, whatever they have, because they're all different. Anyone that is in that situation at the high school, so if it's 200 IEPs, let's say, they're going to have to go through each and every one and make the necessary modifications to fit the current program.
what about the junior high school students with IEPs? Because now their schedule's changing too. So we're talking about junior high school as
It
well?
would have to do the same thing because it would impact whatever that document said as opposed to a regular school day. So whatever would happen for the high school certainly would have to happen for the junior high school students as well.
And is that going to take into consideration, again, like was said, that most students, parents are working parents, these students with IEPs and disabilities, they cannot be left home alone. So these children are going to be home until noon in the afternoon with who's supposed to get them to the bus, who's supposed to.
Yeah.
So the construction project and its flaws are going to dictate my son's educational plan. I just want to clarify that.
Well, certainly, I guess that the answer to that question is that we are in this situation because of things certainly that everyone is aware of that we discussed on Wednesday. Unforeseen circumstances.
We just can't be specific with it right now. We have talked to Ms. Ward. We do know we already have specialized transportation for specific students that have separate transportation. So there is some flexibility with what we can do, but every student is going to be different and every program is going to be different. So we can't really generalize what we're going to do for Mr. Beaton's program or Ms. Flanagan's program, in this form. According to Ms. Ward today, she has been in contact with people above her to get clarification on whether or not she has to do amendments on IEPs. It is a possibility, yes.
I just want to know if all the running. I have two kids that have high school. One in high school.
Hold on one second. There was a question about the records for the students. Yes. Yeah. Correct.
Just a recommendation. I have 2 kids that have IEPs, one in the high school, one in the middle school. What about throwing children with the IEPs? Parents can sign off, ask questions, get it done a little bit better and more efficient, kind of get a little less off the board, as well as use teachers that are going through this as well.
Thank you.
We also asked them to do something, and I think as a committee, we should give them a chance to do what we wanted them to do. And yeah, give them the chance to do what we wanted them to do. I don't think any of us asked, what if we did this? We just, well, you should do this, we need a change. Now we have the change, let's give them the opportunity to do it.
Thank you.
If we have things kept in the locker room in the gym, how will those be transported over? Because there's no like name or record of whose stuff is in what locker.
It's a great point. We'll have to work on that with you too. These are why we have this forum too, as Dr. Clark said, because we need to hear the input from the students and the parents. So thank you. You're thinking of things that we as administrators and educators might not think about. So thank you.
And just so you know, Mr. Molesky is writing down every single question, and he will be studying that list.
Okay, this is in relation to that last question. I just wanted to ask what restoration company has been contracted, because none of the personal items should be brought over here until they're thoroughly cleaned. Just in case there is anything, dust, fibers. So, Mr. Brennan, do you know, have you hired a restoration company as yet to come in, thoroughly clean the high school and the Rainbow Express wing, section that off, just like almost, you know, they know what they're doing. So that needs to be sectioned off. The ducts need to be cleaned. So what restoration company have you hired or contracted to have that done so that our kids are safe? Or Mrs. Steve? Dr. Steve.
I'm sorry, I stated at the beginning, the construction questions, can we ask those later? This is tonight about, you know, moving forward with the educational plan, okay? We're going to talk to you on the side over here, okay? Thank you. I'm sorry.
Hi. You mentioned about the lockers and bringing the stuff over. If you're saying we're closing school, we're going to split sessions because of the nails sticking out of the common area. No lockers in the common area. Why can't the kids get their stuff so they don't feel even more invaded than they are now? And what are they going to do as far as lockers when they're here? Again, that question was asked, if you heard, that we won't have lockers here, but again, your question in terms of the lockers not being in common areas is something we can certainly discuss, because again, we have not fully determined the best way to get the lockers emptied, get everything brought here, similar to the gym locker question, because certainly we can have access, so we can mention the gym lockers the same way without necessarily going over that ceiling. So there's still those things that we're trying to finalize the details for as well. Do you think we're going to start this on Monday? This seems to be, it's still, like I'm watching it and I'm still not sure when I'm going to go home and tell my daughter how it's going to work. Right. Are you going to have some more sending home stuff? Yes. As Dr. Stevenson said, we're hoping to have a meeting early next week to give you additional details as we have more plans. We didn't want to wait until the weekend and let it sit. Now that we know what's going to happen for at least Monday and Tuesday with our tentative plan to get the split schedule moving, much information we possibly could as soon as we could and not let the weekend go. Okay. And Dr. Stevenson, did you say we are going to have a construction meeting after this? No, she said, no, they're hoping to have a formal meeting again to address construction issues. I think she said next week, not this. Okay, thank you. No problem.
And I noticed a couple of locker questions. And I know we said that the high school is not going to be assigned lockers, but there's always individual situations where we do have extra locker space. We just can't provide lockers for every single high school student. So that is something that would have to go through the guidance department or the administrative staff, and we can make accommodations for things like that in special circumstances.
Just one quick question.
are the high schools gonna be able to, have backpacks or something for their books? Because normally they're not.
Normally, that's a good question, and we actually talked about that. We normally don't allow students to travel back and forth with book bags or backpacks. The high school does, and we are open to that happening here. So that is not going to be an issue, especially if we're not going to provide them with a locker.
I know locker sharing is usually frowned upon, but like if family members are now within the same school, can they share lockers?
I'm sorry, what'd you say again?
If, I know locker sharing is usually frowned upon, but if family members are now within the same school, can they share a locker?
Hey, I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but that can be one of the things, again, like I said before. So if you don't mind, I mean, we can discuss that, see what the situation is, and we can certainly let the students and the parents know, you know, if that's acceptable. Fair enough?
I just want to piggyback on one of the questions / comments that we made before with regards to the logistics of the junior high schoolers. The idea of rearranging the regulations on the busing to allow for 15 kids to be picked up in one house is definitely one solution. I don't know whether this is on the table as well, but if it's going to be a split schedule, that means the population in the school at any given time is going to be more or less the same as it would be throughout the day. Is there any consideration as far as any part of the building being available for supervised drop-off for kids? I mean, you're going to have, you know, one group of teachers for half the day, another group of teachers for the other half of the day. Why would there be anything wrong with them supervising in a contained area a certain, I don't know, a certain population of children? I mean, we're going to have a ton of kids that are going to be, you know, there's going to be a logistical nightmare for two-income families, single families, where, you know, we can't wait until noon to drop our kids off. Is there any consideration, whether it's here or someplace else, some facility, and transportation in order to get them has to be a great option?
I think the first thing, and that's a great question, Mr. Ackerman, is that we wanted to see what the building looks like now, because I know how it looks like and what spaces are available, and certainly we have plenty enough room because we have a large amount of people who drop off, particularly like that 8 o'clock session. We probably have anywhere between 30 to 50 kids in the cafeteria. So I think the answer to that question, certainly if we can, and we have a place where we can have a supervised drop-off area to do that, and we can cover that, and certainly we are not opposed to that, because, you know, it would make life a lot easier. But if you just give us, like, let's see how Monday and Tuesday goes, to see how it looks like with this schedule, and certainly we can say the cafeteria is open, it's not being impacted, then certainly we can communicate that back and say, hey, we have a place, feel free to drop off, you know, we'll have tables, they can work on their homework and do things like that. No, perfect, it's a great question, thank you.
We part of our conversation with that too. We're talking about that right before we came, is we were a little concerned depending on the number of students, and that's the only thing that becomes an issue, is obviously there still is a max capacity for the junior high, and we'd be concerned obviously if we said anybody can be dropped off early and where we store depending on the numbers. So we've had a conversation, again, as Mr. Shore said, I think it's going to really depend on once we see how the building looks with the high school students here as well, but definitely something we've been talking about.
Tonight's meeting was precipitated by falling debris, correct?
So to speak, yes.
Okay, why can't construction netting be hung in these open areas to capture those falling debris, and then none of this would have to take place?
In terms of a structure, one of the conversations we had in terms of having anything like some sort of a canopy or a plastic or anything was, heaven forbid that fell. Students trapped below some sort of plastic structure as well, and what would happen in that time? We're talking about plastic. Imagine how much it weighs based on the number, the size of it, to cover the entire commons, plus whatever was falling down as well on top of that. I do not want to ever put a student in that position, sir.
So no pep rally?
Or got it. Yeah, I know, this is exactly.
We had to
Coming back,
cancel our
I'm always up
Halloween
for a pep rally here, you know that.
We canceled our Halloween dance tonight on Friday the 13th.
This is just as exciting as a pep rally or a dance, Mr. Denning.
On Wednesday night, we were told that both schools had to be in attendance at the same time, otherwise it wouldn't count as one of the 180 days by the state. Are Monday and Tuesday going to count?
From what we're told, yes.
Hi, since you brought up the pep rally and all that, is there something that we could be doing as parents to lift the morale of the children? I mean, they are disappointed that they're missing a dance tonight. You know, homecoming is next week, and like, I'm willing to volunteer. My name's Patty Smith, if anybody, you know, a lot of people, I put it out there that I've made some contacts with the state concerning what's going on with the building, but that's not to be brought up here. But regardless, you know, bringing the morale of the kids up, you know, it's a lot of commotion over the last couple of weeks. You know, they're missing their dances, and there's a lot of confusion.
And as far as the junior high school dance goes, I have no problem, you know, once we get rolling to reschedule that dance, because of the situation. Yeah, you know, we needed the cafeteria tonight. This is where we usually hold the dance, so unfortunately we had to cancel. That's a lot of pizza. I mean, I'm always up for a pizza party too. I think the thing is, and you talked about it, is, you know, just trying to maintain that positive attitude. Hopefully, you know, and certainly we can have the conversations, and I don't want the high school students to not have their pep rally. So, you know, if they need to, you know, work and use the junior high school, that's open to them. But, you know, we can have those, you know, we can have those discussions too.
Okay, so I know you guys said as of right now, it's up to the board, right, what you're going to be doing with the days that we miss? Is that what you said?
The board and Dr. Banks when she returns.
Okay. Is there, do you know, or if you could say, is there any talk of taking those days off of spring break?
Yes, with the original calendar, if we looked at all that was online, it said that the first thing that would happen in case would be the loss of the February days around Presidents, followed by some days potentially from spring break.
Okay.
But again, there's no finalized plan, but I'm pretty sure that's what the actual calendar itself did state. No, senior trip does not get impacted by this. Senior trip is the week after, 2 weeks after spring break. There's nothing that's impacting that right now.
I have a small question. If, could you survey the parents of the children and they could decide which days are taken instead of, I know a lot of teachers that do spring break vacation and maybe they'd rather do summer days instead of spring break days, like did you ever?
We can pass that to Dr. Banks and to the board. That's really their determination.
I had a question about the alternative building. Since it's not being used, could we use it as like something for like the special needs children?
We actually do have that, and part of our plan of moving some of the high school programs over, the alternative building will be used. Good question.
I have a question up here and the bleachers.
I really don't have a question. I'm just observing what we're doing as a community here. And obviously none of us sitting out here would want to be one of them up there. And I know that they didn't plan it this way, but we're all facing a challenge here and we need to face it together. We need to rise. Now, I have a son with special needs, and I have a normal kid who's really goofy. But all of our kids are special, each and every one of them, and we want them to get educated. What's important now is how we go home, and how we treat our kids, and how we treat these administrators, and how we communicate with them. They're doing a pretty good job communicating with us. Now,
yeah, Mike.
Give them your ideas, and give them your concerns, give them a half a day and let them work on it. I'm sure they're gonna bust their butt and try to do the best they can. And thank God we're not in California, our houses aren't burning down, we're not in Houston, we're all doing good.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, I just want to say, I was a substitute teacher here last year for this school. This is the most phenomenal staff I have ever worked with. I'm very proud that my daughter is here at this school. I am very happy how proactive this staff is in one day, making the changes they have to do for our students. I know the staff, they are incredible. They really deserve an applause because other schools, you will not see this. And I miss you guys horribly. I miss you guys horribly. Great staff here. I mean, honestly, what the other gentleman just said, they bend over backwards for our students here. So please, I understand everyone's upset, everyone's concerned, a lot of changes here, but please, just be patient. Just understand, just like you said, we're not in California or whatever. Please give them a chance to do what they have to do.
Over here. We probably don't have the answer to this now, but bad weather, when you're gonna have to send kids home early, say the middle school doesn't get to do their half a day, will that be counted against them?
It's a great question, sir. Walter wrote that down and didn't bring that up, so thank you. Is there anybody else?
I do have a question up here.
It's not really a question, it's just a statement in relation to what this gentleman just said. I think in answer to this woman's question over here about how to boost the morale of the students, I think what the parents bring home into their households, whether it be negative or positive, I think greatly impacts our students. And I think if we can all be positive and make the best of a horrible situation and know that we're all in this together and we're going to get the job done, I think that's going to be the thing that boosts up our students' morale.
Thank you.
And ma'am, from the administration, we can tell you that this morning we met with our staff, and the junior high school staff opened up their classrooms to the high school staff, and it was one of the most uplifting days we've had as an administrative team, because our teachers came together today and they were so helpful with each other. It was really great to see. They were like family today, and you know, they're educating your kids is all they want to do, and that's what they're trying to do right now. So the morale is here within this building, and the kids will feed off of that, and they will bring that home. Okay.
I know you're just getting into this, but have you considered at all, maybe for special needs kids, an option of sending them out of district so they're not affected by this mess? Or is it something that you could possibly consider in the long run?
We'll certainly pass it along to Ms. Ward for her to consider as well. All right. I really want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I know it's been said by a few of you, but really this means a lot to us to know that there's this many parents that are so concerned about their students' education and what we're going to put in place to make sure that they can continue with that. We really thank you for that, and certainly, as Dr. Stevenson said, we will let you know early next week, hopefully, when we're going to have a follow-up meeting for additional information about split sessions. As she mentioned as well, that she's trying to have a follow-up meeting as well for construction concerns. But again, thank you all so much for coming tonight. We really appreciate hearing from all of you, and have a great weekend.